Hello, everybody. It is Friday. You made it. Congratulations. 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 You have made it to the end of the week. I'm your host, Mark Alvarado. I will be closing out your weekend style. Welcome to this episode of Closing Out the Week. We got some things to talk about. There's been some interesting news stories that have transpired this week. Most notably, the pick from Biden for his VP candidate, Kamal Harris. She is going to be the vice presidential nominee, if that even is the correct term. Look, I'm not a man of terms. I'm a man of ideas. But before we get to that depressing news and the second depressing story, let's talk about some lighter things. Let's talk about basketball. We're talking basketball. And I'm talking about that the Portland Trail Blazers are now the 8th seed in the West currently, and the Memphis Grizzlies are the 9th. However, I must shout out my boys in Phoenix. The Suns won 8 straight games. They were coming into this bubble, this NBA bubble, with the worst record, tied with, I believe, the Washington Wizards for the worst record in the bubble, and they won 8 straight games. If Memphis would have lost to the Bucks today, the Suns would have been in, and we would have had Portland, Phoenix, a Portland-Phoenix play-in game situation, but no. Instead, Ja Morant and Jonas Valanciunas both dropped triple-doubles on a Giannis-less Bucks team. Giannis got a suspension for headbutting Mo Wagner in their last game. So he was out for this game, which was just what the Grizzlies needed to squeak in as the 9th seed. The Trailblazers need to just beat the Grizzlies one time, and we can move into the playoffs knowing that it will be Lakers-Blazers. But if the Grizzlies win one game, they have to win a second one in order to become the 8th seed and they will earn the right to play the Lakers in the first round of the playoffs. Let's all hope that I always mess up one word every episode. And this one is Trailblazers, even though it's 2 words, but still. Let's just hope that the Trailblazers can pull it off, win a game, so we can see a fun first round series between Anthony Davis and LeBron James versus Damian Lillard, my new favorite player of the NBA. He's so fucking good. It's insane. And CJ McCollum, who's also very good as well. It would be also cool to see LeBron and Carmelo playing against each other again. Even though it's vastly different situations now than back when I first started watching basketball. But nonetheless, still would be very entertaining to see. Okay, so now that first little news story is out of the way, let's talk about some depressing stuff. I'll leave the Kamala bit to the very end. But this is probably the most depressing thing we're going to talk about, this next story. And then Kamala is a little bit less depressing, but still fucking depressing. So Trump has said that he is blocking USPS's funding to prevent mail-in voting. He's not even trying to hide it anymore. President Trump on Thursday said he's against the U.S. Postal Service funding Democrats. So President Trump said on Thursday that he is against the funding for USPS that the Democrats are seeking, while noting that without it, you can't have universal mail-in voting. Trump said while Democrats are asking for about $3.5 billion in funding for mail-in voting and $25 billion for the USPS as part of the stimulus bill that is being negotiated currently in Congress. They aren't getting there, he says. And if they don't get those 2 items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting because they're not equipped to have it. Trump has repeatedly claimed without evidence that widespread mail-in voting amid the pandemic would result in a corrupt election. Many analysts viewed Trump's comments as admitting he's holding up USPS's funding in order to block mail-in voting ahead of the election, which would likely suppress voter turnout. So who does this really hurt, though? This is the most interesting part. Who is guiding Trump to do this? Like, his team has to be talking to him behind the scenes, right? They're not just going to let him just go rogue. So this is a strategic move for him. Not only is this super, super, super authoritarian and scary, okay, that goes without saying. This is fucked up on a number of levels. But if you're thinking, okay, if he's going to do this, it's got to help him out somehow, right? But a large part of the Republican base is old white people who use mail-in voting in order to vote. So, honestly, in a weird, like, this could very well hurt Donald Trump's chances at getting reelected. Like, he might be literally, almost literally, rolling the dice with defunding the post office to hope that maybe this will suppress the Biden Harris voters and will empower or help in some way the Trump voters. I don't see that happening, though, because like I said, a large number of the Republican base, the voting base, is old white people who mail their ballots in, who could not be bothered to go and vote in person, because why? It's just more convenient to mail it, right? But now here we are looking at Trump saying no mail, no post office. And it's kind of perplexing. It makes no sense to me why he wouldn't want this. Yeah, just doesn't make sense from that optics standpoint. Overall, it's a dumb idea to not fund the post office. Even a lot of Republicans disagree with not funding the post office. It's a vital, necessary service for the country to function. So many businesses rely on the postal service. So many people are employed by the post office who, if they don't get their funding, are going to lose their jobs. And guess what? That's going to happen. Unemployment is going to go up a little bit more. And that's the last thing we need. It literally makes no sense why this is happening. But, I mean, I guess here we are. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know what really to say to this other than it really feels like the world's ending, man. It really feels like it. And that's a perfect segue into the last story of this episode. And it is that Kamala Harris, like I said, Kamala Harris is the running mate to Vice President Joe Biden's presidential ticket. She has been selected. She has been summoned by Sleepy Joe. And this is a terrible pick for so many reasons. First of all, as district attorney of the state of California, she enforced, and not just enforced, but she ramped up on the war on drugs in California, which has done nothing but hurt minority communities across the state. And then now she's trying to brand herself as this progressive prosecutor when that could be further from the fucking truth. And I'm all for people changing. I know people can change, but I mean, you can't hide from your past too, though. You have to be honest. She's a politician, so she's not going to be honest. She's going to pretend like she's always been this beacon of, progressivism, but she hasn't at all. But it's funny though, because there's two takes on it. There's liberals out there who are like, oh, this is amazing, a black woman who's gonna representation, oh. And then the right thinks that she's literally like a communist, that she's just this Stalinistic figure who's gonna instill bread lines and shit. It's so ridiculous. But look, what have we been protesting for the past almost 2 months, 3 months almost, it has been against the criminal justice system of this country. How badly it needs to be reformed. That's what's been protested against. And the DNC and Joe Biden's campaign decide that the best decision, the best person to run alongside him is a former district attorney who went out of her way to target minority communities in California. It makes no sense to me. They want to sit there, the Dems want to sit there and wear their African patterned cloths, scarves. I'm sorry, I don't know the correct terminology, but I'm thinking of that one image of like Nancy Pelosi and all the Democratic House representatives, and them having those African patterned scarves on and kneeling for like 3 minutes or 8 minutes or somehow for however long George Floyd was held down by Officer Chauvin, and holding their fists up. It's all symbolic for them. They could care less. They could care less. But I must say that, look, at the end of the day, my goal I don't even have a fucking goal. It's not like I am a player in this game. But what I would like to see is for the Democratic Party to become actually left, because this is what I'm going to explain to everybody right now. Hot take for those of you who don't have your ear to the streets, but I'm about to let you in on what the streets have been whispering to me. And what they've been saying, man, is that the Democratic Party is not a left party. We do not have a left party in the United States. We have the Republican Party, which is very staunchly conservative. Then you have the Democratic Party, who are center-right, and they are just corporatists to the fucking T. And that's what we have. So what I would really like to see is the Democratic Party getting pushed further left, so at least they can be just center-left, maybe. The thing is that when you have politicians who are just backed by corporations, there's only so far left you can go, okay? You can't, like just philosophically, like ideologically speaking, corporations benefit from more, the people at the top of the corporations benefit more. Will get more money, will make more money under more conservative leaning governments. That's just how it is in politics and in government. So what happened, and this was actually, I actually heard this from Eric Weinstein, who gets a lot of hate. I understand why, but honestly, I think he's a very honest person. And I'm a pretty left-leaning person, so look, I don't hate Eric Weinstein. He does like kind of pal around with some people that I'm not really the biggest fan of, but I feel like he really comes from a good place, truly. But I heard him talking one time, I forgot where, I think it might have been on a podcast, but he was talking about how back in the day, the Democratic Party stood for the people, really. They were a populist party through and through, but in more of the vein of looking at people's issues and trying to solve those working day people's issues. The Republican Party has branded themselves, and at the time with Reagan and everything, they branded themselves as the working man's party too. But we all knew it's all about not taxing the rich and hoping that it trickles down, right? That's the whole idea from that time pre-Clinton. Okay, so that's how the dichotomy was. You had a corporate party and you had the People's Party. And then Clinton came and was like, I'll sell out my party if I could get money and we could wipe out the national debt. And the corporations were like, phew, we can have two parties? Okay, why not have two parties at the same time? So then Bill Clinton became backed by a ton of corporations, won the presidency, and everybody was loving life because the corporations had both parties in the palms of their hands. And ever since that point, they have been backed. Both parties have been backed staunchly by different types of corporations. Okay? So, with that in mind, it is clear that, going back to what I said before, the Democratic Party is a center-right party that focuses on symbology to try to trick people into thinking that they're progressive when they're not. And the Republicans are not even scared anymore to show just how racist their base is. Even though I know there's Republicans that aren't racist. I know that. But more and more it is becoming apparent that the Republican Party has racist leanings at its core. So, what I hope is that by voting for Biden and getting him in to the presidency, that we will be able to bully him through social media, because that has a lot of power now. Bully him and his administration into shifting further left in their policy making. It's way easier to bully the people who used left ideology as symbolic gestures, as opposed to Trump, who literally could care less. Biden wants to please as much of the left as possible. Now, I'm not saying that Biden's going to just become Bernie Sanders overnight. That's not happening at all. I'm not expecting that. But more will be able to get done under a Biden presidency than a fucking Trump presidency. And at least there will be some semblance of stability. Look, Biden's not going to last his term. There's no way in fucking hell he's going to last another term. Okay? That's fine. Kamala is young enough to at least reestablish some honor, just a shred of honor. She can at least like reinstill like a strings worth of honor back to what the presidency used to mean. If she could at least do that, that's fine. That's fine. And then guess what? We try again in 2024, and we just keep trying. We keep going. We don't give up. There's a lot of people who don't want to vote, and I understand it's fucking frustrating, because eventually a third party is going to have to come in and become viable. But until that point, you have to keep trying to push the Dems left. And the only way to do that is to get Dems in and then bully them and push them left. That's the only way to do it. That's the only way to do it. But this shit gets exhausting. I totally understand. And that leads us into the theme of the week. Oh, we did it. It's time for the theme. What is that theme? It is breaks, actually. Taking a break. Such a simple concept. Such a simple concept. After a hard day's work, or even right in the middle of a hard day's work, you take a break. But a lot of people, their whole life is on a break right now. And that can be rather scary, right? I definitely understand. I actually just came back from a couple days in Lake Tahoe with some friends. It was very relaxing. We've had a great time. But while I was there, I kept thinking about breaks and how a lot of people think that they're really taking a break when they're not. And what I mean by that is we've had so much time. At least a lot of us have had a lot of time to ourselves in the past 5 months because of this pandemic and the quarantine and everything, that we think because we just have all this empty time on our hands that we're allowing ourselves to decompress and take a break. When in reality, we still have work to do, but that work isn't being done physically. Some of us go out and work out, and good for you, and that's awesome. Some of us have projects to do, get our hands dirty gardening, or working on the backyard, building a fence, which I had to do over the past couple months, or working on a car, or doing something else, right? Skateboarding, something. Some of us have that. A lot of us don't, though. And in our minds, that's where it's the hardest to make your mind take a break, because it's easy to take a break with your body. You just sit down, you lay down, take a nap. Like it's not hard to do physically. For some of us, maybe it is, but I mean, no, for me, it's pretty easy to take a break physically. Mentally, that's where the break is needed. And a lot of us aren't taking that mental break. So I just implore you that if you feel mentally drained or mentally tired, to just lay down, stare at the ceiling, and try to count backwards from 100 down to 1. And every time another intrusive thought comes in, we're like, oh, I forgot to get this from the store. Oh, you know, things just pop into your mind and just bombard you. Every time that happens, start over. Eventually, you're going to get to 1. And when you do, you'll feel better. And with that, I have closed out your week in style. I hope you have a great weekend, full of counting backwards from 100 down to 1. I will be back on Wednesday with Quinn on the Closers podcast. We're going to be interviewing some of our friends from Paper Airplanes. They're a local Sacramento band that just released an EP actually today, Friday, the 14th. Go and check it out on Spotify. It is called Stay Away. And once again, the band is called Paper Airplanes, so check them out. They're great dudes. Super cool pop punky music. And anyways, guys, without further ado, I will bid you an adieu. Have a great weekend. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at The Closers Podcast if you haven't already. All right. Take care.